What's up, folks? Just wanted to record this video on sports. And, I posted a few things on my Facebook page tonight about the Minneapolis Miracle when the guy Diggs caught the touchdown pass when it looked like the game was lost and the New Orleans Saints were about to win and go play Philadelphia. I guess that was a few years ago. And then I posted also the home run that Kirk Gibson hit for the Los Angeles Dodgers. And I'm from Detroit originally, and he used to play for the Tigers and hit a big home run against Rich Goose Gossage back in the day when the Tigers won their last World Championship in 1984. And it's interesting to me. I don't really like sports like that anymore because, truthfully, I think sports are fixed. I really do. Whether it's because of the mob or major corporations and all the money that's involved. It's just certain things over the years have just showed up to me where I'm just like, that makes no sense at all. That it just, as and looking at the history, like they say, follow the money. When you really follow the money, and that applies to everything, and this world is so fabricated. This construct that we're born into is so false in so many ways. I mean, it's all an illusion, period. In the truest sense. But the main point is that I used to be a sports fanatic at one time. Went to radio and television broadcasting school. Wanted to be a sports announcer. I love sports announcers. Like Vin Scully, Ernie Harwell back in the day, growing up in Detroit, listening to him on the radio. Oh God, who else? Harry Carey was hilarious for the Chicago Cubs. Oh, golly. I mean, what's my man's name? Don Criqui from back in the day. Him and it wasn't Merlin Olsen, but oh yeah, and Dick Enberg. He was pretty classic. Right up there with his "Oh My," Keith Jackson was one of my favorites. I mean, the list goes on and on. But people that just had that, a lot of times when I watch the highlights on YouTube from different players, like Bo Jackson, who are just phenomenal athletes. I mean, he was in many respects, probably the greatest athlete ever. And that's, I don't know if negligible is the word I'm looking for, but the bottom line is, you could kind of go either way with that. But in terms of what he did for the short time that he played, that dude was like freaking amazing. So, bottom line is sports is a great outlet, and at times the thing is that it can become a form of escapism and not wanting to deal with your life. That's a part of why I check out on it, and how like I said, I think it's all controlled, and nothing wrong with watching a great game from time to time. I mean, just thinking about the Minneapolis Miracle, Kirk Gibson hitting a home run against the Dodgers when he could barely walk to the plate, in 1988. I think that was when the Dodgers won their last World Championship. I'm from Detroit. When the Pistons won, you know, their first world title with Isaiah and Vinnie Johnson and the Bad Boys after, losing that year prior to the Celtics when he threw the pass in the backcourt. No, it wasn't in the backcourt. Yeah, I guess it was a backcourt. Attempting to throw it to Lambeer, and then Bird intercepts it, and then Celtics go and win the game, and I think they lost. But anyway, the point is, I love a great game. Whether it's hockey, basketball, football, baseball. I'm actually more of a baseball fanatic than I am anything, and I don't really even watch that much anymore. But I love seeing people perform at a high level. Just seeing Bo Jackson's exploits, seeing Isaiah Thomas during the height of his greatness with the Pistons, and I know it may be like almost a sin to say Michael Jordan's name in the same breath with Isaiah, and at the same time, Jordan was just in many ways to me the greatest ever. I look at his highlights still, and I'm like, man, this cat was doing stuff. The way he finished at the basket, uh, the fire that he had, he was just And Isaiah was kind of the same way. Isaiah didn't back down from nobody. He wasn't no punk. He was fearless. People can say what they want to say about him, in terms of his personality or whatever. But Zeke was the man. And 9 times out of 10, if it was a shot to be made and to be taken in the last moments of the game, he was that guy. And people who know basketball, they know what's up. They give him his props. You know what I'm saying? And even Jordan acknowledged that it was because of the Pistons and the Bad Boys and they're just being rough with him that it just forced him to say, well, let me up my game. And, look what he was going to accomplish great things anyway. And sometimes it takes that stiff check to the chin, from your opponent to wake you up and realize that, yo, they ain't going to stop. So that means I got to up my game. So the main point to it all is that I still enjoy, seeing people perform at a high level, great athleticism, even martial arts. I was watching a couple videos today with Wing Chun, martial art that I studied a while back, some years ago, and ideally want to get back to. And they have this exercise in Wing Chun called sticky hands, where it's literally like you and your opponent in your practice sessions are your hands literally don't really leave one another. And it's like, this is a style made popular by Bruce Lee, for those of you who know who Bruce Lee is. And I mean, that art form is beautiful to watch, and it is kick ass. I mean, it's like offensive and defensive at the same time. The point is, whether it's people, in the Olympics, on the decathlon, or Usain Bolt breaking records, and this dude is like 6'5", running faster than any man has ever run before. Love watching people perform at a high level. And so yeah, it's just kind of interesting to observe that and kind of take it with a grain of salt. After a while, I get kind of to a space where I'm like, I don't really need to watch it anymore. And I mean, I watch it for weeks or months at a time. And even I was talking to one of my coworkers today about how I wanted to become a sports announcer at one time. Doing play-by-play. Calling basketball games or football games. Like I said, the announcers are epic, and their reactions are hilarious. I mean, the dude that called the game from Minnesota, when my man caught the touchdown, saying right before the play happened, we need a Minneapolis miracle. And the reaction that came afterwards was absolutely priceless. So, just seeing cats and seeing people excited, seeing people win, seeing people accomplish their goal. How cool is that? You know, that's one of the biggest things I get from watching sports if I, watch it nowadays. And a lot of times, most of the teams that I liked, everybody always hated. Of course, being from Detroit, the Bad Boys, everybody hated them pretty much, except, people in Detroit, and I guess at least that was the perception anyway. And shout out to the Bad Boys. They should have had probably 4 titles, and they didn't get the respect that they deserved. That team was badass. Vinnie Johnson, Joe Dumars, whether you hate Rick Mahorn or Lambeer, who cares? They got shit done. They put in work. And I don't even know that I agree with some of the things that they did. But at the same time, you can't argue with effectiveness. You know what I'm saying? And then, that squad coming off the bench at the time, Rodman was just a beast. And then Sally was making his contribution. So between my love for the Pistons or the Miami Hurricanes back in the day, which everybody hated them. I used to love the Dallas Cowboys growing up. Everybody hated the Cowboys. Actually, I love the Yankees too, because they had my man Reggie Jackson on there. My last name's Jackson, of course. So that was something I was aligned with, and that was before Steinbrenner started just poisoning the team with everything that he did. He had to be involved in everything. He wanted more media time than the players did. After that, I didn't really care for the Yankees as much. But yeah, it's always interesting to see people, that put in the work, take care of themselves, train at a high level, and just seeing, what might have been with Bo Jackson if he had managed to stay healthy. I mean, even if he had just played baseball exclusively, the throws that guy made from the outfield, the home runs that he hit, if he had cleaned up his swing because he used to strike out a lot, um, his game, I mean, even the bases he could have stolen, he could have broke all kind of records if he had just. And I think he was a little older when he started playing in the major leagues, but like I said, the main thing is just seeing people perform at a high level is just a beautiful thing. Watching the guys in the NBA that still know how to pass the rock. A lot of times people don't, really acknowledge a lot of big men that pass really well, but like Chris Webber, Vlade Divac, God, who else? There were some others that were great passers. And just seeing Shaq in his prime with the Lakers and just the athleticism that guy had. I never will forget seeing him in the McDonald's High School All-American game. He blocked a shot, grabbed the ball, was looking for somebody to pass it to. Nobody came to him. And so he literally took the ball coast to coast and slammed it. And I mean, that was before he started putting on the weight because, I mean, he was still in high school at that time. Still over 7 feet. Still probably 250 plus in terms of his weight. And if that dude knew how to shoot free throws or if he had more moves in the low post, I mean, I love Shaq. And at the same time, if he had moves in the low post like Hakeem Olajuwon had, without a doubt, he would have been the greatest ever. And if he hadn't been able to hit those free throws, he'd have been the greatest ever. And I mean, I got a number of respect for Jordan. But ultimately, if he had won maybe a couple more titles and had those two key components to his game on point, the free throws, and having those drop steps in the low post, or, because a lot of times just by his brute strength, he would just overpower the guy that was guarding him and just end up dunking the basketball or laying it off the glass or something like that. Not taking anything away from him, but it's like if he had really played on the level he was capable of, oh my God. So yeah, but anyway, those are some thoughts that I had about the whole thing around sports. And it's just weird now to see, it's comical to see that because of this COVID thing. I just happened to click on TV the other day and see a baseball game, and they literally have cardboard cutouts of people in the stands where people would normally sit before this COVID thing. I'm like, really? That's just, it's mind-boggling to me, but I guess that's the sign of the times that we're in. So, wherever you are when it comes to sports, do you, if you still got your teams that you root for, great, and I'm from Detroit, born and raised, so I still root for all my teams in Detroit, even though I live in Atlanta. Um, it's just, I guess, one of the other things that caused me to really check out on the conversation around sports is the fact that when all of that corporation money came into the game, yeah, it was great for the players because their salaries went through the roof, and at the same time, they're putting corporate logos on everything. They even put them on the NBA players' jerseys now. Basically, they're slaves of the corporation. You know what I'm saying? Modern day slaves. That's the non-sexy part about it in terms of another reason why I don't really like to watch sports anymore. Because a lot of times these guys are not being prepared for life. They're not being educated on finances and how to, and I think they've probably gotten better because I've seen some things about how in the NBA they talk to the rookies and guys like that on how to really set themselves up for their playing days after after they've, maybe had an injury or maybe even if they've had a long career, setting themselves up powerfully for the, last chapter of their life. And that was another thing that I just found disheartening is just hearing all these stories about these dudes that were amazing athletes, and then after their playing days are over, 5 or 10 years afterwards, if that, they were broke. And a lot of them came from the neighborhoods that I came from. And then all of a sudden, you don't have no money no more. And then you attract these women that only want you for your money and ain't trying to contribute nothing to you. End up taking you to court and end up taking you in court, and then you back to damn near being broke, like that's just terrible. And it's just seeing a lot of that in sports is another thing that kind of turned me off from it, is the fact that I used to think about that growing up. I'm like, back in the day, I remember reading something where they said the average salary in the NBA, this was when I was living back in Detroit, was like $1 million. And I'm talking like for the dude that was like the 12th man on the team that saw no playing time. I used to think to myself, okay, if I'm the 12th man on the bench, I'm making $1 million per year. And I used to always think about this one dude, Chuck Levitt. I think that was his name. He was 7'5", but he was like a scrub. He never saw playing time with the Pistons unless the game was pretty much decided. And I think he stayed on the Pistons for probably like 3 or 4 years. I'm thinking to myself, if I'm wise with my money, I live below my means. I remember when I was with Primerica Financial Services, one of the dudes was talking about that at one of the events about living on 30% of your income. So let's say you live on 30% of your income, you make $1 million. Because a lot of times you travel a lot, you know, you got a lot of practice. Uh, Sometimes you might get traded. So it's like to live on 30% of your income. Let's say you make $1 million a year back in that time, and then you invest it wisely, like the right type of life insurance policy. Um, Maybe you get into stocks, futures. Maybe you buy, some precious metals, something like that to really set yourself up powerfully. You never should have to work another day again in your life, ever. And to hear these stories about how a lot of these dudes end up broke, and then especially if they're football players, a lot of them can barely walk because they had injuries to their knees or to their hips, like Bo Jackson had, to where they're like compromised for the rest of their life, or to their brain from all of the, head trauma. So it's like, is it really even worth it? You know? So I guess in a way that's why I like baseball, because it seems to be more of a pure sport, I guess. Excuse me. Or the fact that I used to enjoy watching or listening to baseball games with my pops. We would listen to Ernie Harwell back in the day, growing up in Detroit. So on the radio, and that was always pretty exciting. Oh yeah, major props to my man George Kell and Al Kaline. That George Kell was a great play-by-play announcer too. He brought that energy and that excitement to the game. So yeah, that's kind of what it is. It's like if sports is still your thing, that's cool. If you play sports, great. And if you play sports and you playing at a high level, even if you're not playing at a high level, plan for your future. Read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Read Think and Grow Rich. You know what I'm saying? Read Becoming Your Own Banker by Nelson Nash. You know what I'm saying? Empower yourself around your finances. You know, um, Listen to some of Robert Kiyosaki's podcast, uh, or George Gammon. That's another cat that I check out quite often on YouTube that drops jewels about, you know, the financial markets, basically the Federal Reserve Bank, which is fraudulent. That's a whole another conversation. But essentially how to really just strategize and plan your life such that you can really be set up powerfully to where money ceases to be an issue. So that's all I had around that. So if you're performing at a high level, great, thinking about cats like Michael Phelps and stuff like that. But above all else, take care of the temple. You know what I'm saying? Take care of your physical body. Take care of your mind, your brain, rather. Make sure you get your rest. And even as toxic as this society is, with all of the plastics polluting the oceans and the GMOs and the polluted waterways and all of that, do the best you can, you know what I'm saying? And keep an empowering context. Stay positive as much as possible in spite of all of the negativity and the drama that's going on out there. And yeah, winning is great. Accomplishment is better. I think there's a distinction there to me that's a little more balanced. That's just how it occurs to me. But whatever it is, playing at a high level, performing at a high level, whether it's your work, how that Martin Luther King said, if you're gonna be a street sweeper, sweep streets like Michelangelo or Picasso painted pictures, you know what I'm saying? It's like that kind of thing. So yeah. So anyway, just something I was thinking about tonight and watching some of the videos I watched on with Kirk Gibson and the Minneapolis Miracle and some of the great plays that baseball players making during the course of a game, throwing people out from the outfield, like a couple of throws that Bo Jackson made where he threw some people out. I was like, this dude, he had a cannon for an arm. So have fun, play your sports, watch your sports if that's what you're into, and plan for your future and stack those chips. Peace.